Your kind doesn't belong up here. In exactly 127 hours, those words would detonate the most viral airline confrontation in history. But right now, sitting in Skybridge Airlines' mahogany boardroom, Marcus Thompson had no idea that a single cup of coffee and 25 years of buried racism were about to collide at 30,000 feet live on social media for 200,000 viewers. The quarterly board meeting had dragged past 6 p.m., Atlanta's skyline glowing through floor-to-ceiling windows. Marcus rubbed his temples as Dr. Sarah Chen clicked through slides painting his airline's reputation in blood-red declining metrics. So you're telling me our customer satisfaction has crashed 18% in 6 months? Marcus's voice carried 3 decades of building Skybridge, from his father's 12-plane operation into a $4.2 billion empire. Dr. Chen didn't flinch. Complaints up 41%. Passenger defection to competitors up 12%. But here's the real problem. She clicked to demographic breakdowns. Black passengers report 34% more service issues than whites. Hispanics 28% more. The discrimination is systematic. The room went dead silent. Victoria Hayes, Marcus's CFO and oldest ally, leaned forward with 28 years of institutional knowledge behind her silver hair. Are you suggesting our people are deliberately? I'm showing you data that says we're hemorrhaging customers because they feel unwelcome on their own damn airline, Dr. Chen interrupted sharply. Particularly passengers who don't look like... She gestured around the predominantly white boardroom. James Mitchell, the British VC representative, shifted uncomfortably. Even if there are irregularities, we must be cautious about accusations that could expose us to what? The truth. Marcus shot up his Mont Blanc pen, clicking against his father's leather portfolio. When's the last time any of you flew coach? When's the last time you waited in a normal security line or dealt with a delayed connection without corporate assistance? Cricket silence. That's what I thought. Marcus strode to the windows overlooking Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. We're making decisions about experiences we never have. Marcus Victoria said carefully, we're still profitable while failing people. He spun back. My father built this airline in 1967 with one rule. Treat every passenger like family coming home. When did we stop seeing passengers as human beings? James leaned back dismissively. The industry has evolved. Margins are razor thin. Competition is exactly why this matters. Marcus's voice sharpened. Southwest treats people like humans. Delta's stealing our premium customers. We're giving everyone reasons to choose somebody else. Dr. Chen cleared her throat. Sir, the patterns suggest deeper cultural problems. Discrimination complaints aren't random. They cluster around specific crews, specific routes, specific demographics among our staff. Marcus felt ice shoot through his veins. As one of the few black airline CEOs in America, he knew discrimination intimately. But seeing it quantified in his own company's data hit like a sledgehammer. How long have these patterns existed? At least 18 months of clear data, possibly longer. Rebecca Stone. His assistant looked up from her notes. Sir, what are you thinking? The words exploded out before he'd fully formed the plan. I'm going undercover. The room erupted. James scoffed loudly. Victoria looked alarmed. But Marcus felt clarity like lightning. 2 weeks. I'm going to fly our routes like a normal passenger. No special treatment, no corporate perks, no advance warnings to crew. I want to experience what we've really become. This isn't bloody television, Marcus James protested. The liability alone. The liability of continuing like this is worse. Marcus's voice carried finality. Rebecca booked me on our primary routes under Martin Thompson. Middle name, father's surname. Boston to Atlanta economy, Atlanta to Houston, premium economy, Houston to Denver business, Denver to LA, first class. Victoria sighed in defeat. Hotels, same name. Martin Thompson, sales rep from Atlanta. Standard rates, standard treatment. Marcus gathered his papers. No flags, no notifications, no special handling whatsoever. This is bloody madness, James muttered. This is leadership. Marcus headed for the door. Victoria, handle operations while I'm gone. When I return, we're going to fix what's broken. All of it. Behind him, James whispered to another board member. Man's having a proper midlife crisis. Marcus smiled grimly. Maybe he was. Or maybe it was finally time to discover whether the airline his father built on dignity and respect had survived its transformation into a corporate profit machine. William Thompson's voice echoed in his memory. Son, you can't lead folks through experiences you never had. Want to run an airline? Better understand what needing that airline feels like. 3 days later, Marcus stood in his walk-in closet, staring at Italian suits and Swiss watches that would instantly scream executive class. None of it would work. His shopping trip to Target felt surreal, wandering aisles of ordinary clothes, checking price tags, standing in checkout lines like a regular human. The khakis, polo shirts, and department store button-downs he assembled would camouflage him perfectly among America's traveling masses. The barber raised eyebrows at his transformation request, but said nothing as Marcus's distinguished silver styling became a simple, forgettable cut. A few days of stubble replaced his usual clean-shaven look. Reading glasses from CVS completed the disguise. In his bathroom mirror, the airline CEO had vanished. The man looking back could be any middle-aged professional heading to any meeting in any American city. Perfect. Rebecca had crafted an itinerary that would expose Marcus to every aspect of the modern passenger nightmare: connections, delays, different airports, varying service standards across Skybridge's network. Each leg would strip away another layer of executive insulation. I built in realistic connection times, she explained, sliding boarding passes across his desk. No special routing. You'll experience exactly what customers do when things go sideways. Marcus flipped through documents showing his progression from economy hell to first-class discrimination. What about customer service access? Standard phone numbers. Standard wait times. You're Martin Thompson, pharmaceutical sales rep. Nothing special about you whatsoever. The single carry-on bag felt foreign in his hands. When had he last carried his own luggage? When had he last stood in a normal security line? Or worried about overhead bin space? His father's voice whispered, "Every job in this airline matters, because every passenger matters." Can't understand the passenger experience from the corporate penthouse. William Thompson had flown competitors monthly, studying their service, understanding customer alternatives. Know your competition, but know your customer's choices better. Marcus grabbed his ordinary luggage, took one last look at his transformed reflection, and headed out to rediscover his own airline. In exactly 124 hours, his world would explode in the most watched airline confrontation in social media history. But first, he had to survive economy class. Hartsfield-Jackson at 6 a.m. was controlled chaos with a touch of federal theater. Marcus joined the TSA pre-check line, still available to Martin Thompson, thanks to his corporate membership. But even expedited security stretched endlessly with business travelers' families and the complex choreography of modern airport movement. A young Latino family ahead struggled with strollers, car seats, and 2 small children navigating the security maze. The father looked overwhelmed, juggling collapsing equipment and a squirming toddler, while his wife convinced their 5-year-old to surrender a stuffed elephant to the X-ray machine. Need help? Marcus stepped forward, steadying the stroller before disaster struck. God, yes. Thank you. The man's relief was immediate. Carlos Torres. This vacation was my wife's idea. It'll be fun, she said. Martin Thompson. Let me grab that. Together, they navigated the Torres family through security without major catastrophe. As they gathered belongings on the other side, Maria Torres joined them. You're an angel, she said to Marcus. I'm starting to think we should have driven to Orlando instead. Where you headed first Boston, then connecting tomorrow to Disney World. Skybridge had the best price, but... Carlos gestured at the chaos. This is already exhausting. Marcus made his first mental note. Families needed better support, but clearly weren't getting it. Strike one against his airline. At gate B12, the boarding area was packed beyond human capacity. Passengers sat on floors near charging stations. Children ran between overstuffed chairs, and the gate agents seemed more interested in their computer screens than passenger management. When boarding began, the process immediately collapsed into complete dysfunction. Group 1 and premium passengers announced the gate agent without looking up. A mob surged forward clearly, including people from groups 3, 4, and 5. Marcus watched the agents make token efforts to check boarding passes, while passengers pushed past with obvious non-Group 1 tickets. This wasn't the organized, welcoming experience Skybridge advertised. This was amateur hour. Boarding flight 847. Marcus found seat 28B middle economy exactly as requested. The seats were noticeably narrower than he remembered, the blue leather, patched with nearly invisible tape, the general condition showing years of deferred maintenance. A large businessman claimed the aisle seat, immediately commandeering both armrests, like a territorial gorilla. An elderly black woman squeezed into the window seat with apologetic smiles. These seats keep shrinking, don't they? She said gently. They really do. I'm Martin, Janet Rivers. 15 years flying this route to see my daughter in Boston. Used to be pleasant. Now it's like traveling in a sardine can with attitude. Derek Phillips. The aisle seat occupant leaned over condescendingly. First time in economy. You have that deer in headlights look. It's been a while, Marcus replied diplomatically. I usually fly first on Delta, but had to book last minute. Skybridge's service has really tanked. Word is, the CEO's more focused on Wall Street than customer experience. Classic corporate sellout story. Marcus nearly choked on the brutal irony. Really? Oh, absolutely. Marcus Thompson built something decent with his father's little airline, but the last few years have been all about stock prices and expansion. Classic story: build something great, then watch the bean counters destroy it piece by piece. Janet patted Marcus's arm. Don't mind him, honey. Some of us remember when this airline meant something. My late husband worked for Eastern. He'd have appreciated what Mr. Thompson built originally, before it all went corporate. The safety demonstration played on overhead screens, corporate video, replacing the live presentations Marcus remembered from Skybridge's earlier incarnation. Flight attendants. Kevin Walsh and Amanda Foster moved through pre-flight checks with mechanical efficiency. No engagement with passengers. No smiles. No warmth. Zero human connection. Strike two. Mid-flight turbulence struck hard. Across the aisle, a young Asian woman began hyperventilating, gripping her armrests until her knuckles went white. She pressed the call button desperately. 5 minutes passed. When Amanda Foster finally responded, her help was dismissive. Just rough air. We'll be through it soon. She kept moving without waiting for a response. Marcus leaned across the aisle. First time flying. The woman nodded, breathing rapidly. Try this: breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for 7, out for 8. Activates your parasympathetic nervous system. She attempted the technique. Gradually, her panic subsided. Thank you. Are you a doctor? Just someone who's flown a lot. I'm Martin. Lisa Park. Job interview in Boston. First real opportunity after college. I want to create hospitality experiences that make people feel valued. She managed a shaky smile. Not making a great first impression, having a panic attack. Handling anxiety with grace shows resilience. That's valuable in hospitality. When they landed, the Torres family struggled again with their equipment and children. Amanda Foster stood at the front, making impatient gestures about keeping the aisle clear while offering zero assistance. Marcus helped Carlos gather scattered items, while Amanda visibly rolled her eyes at the delay. By the Logan terminal, Marcus had filled 6 notebook pages with observations. Not catastrophic failures, but systematic small breakdowns in service comfort and basic human decency. More troubling was the pattern emerging exactly matching Dr. Chen's data. White passengers like Derek Phillips received marginally more courtesy. Black passengers like Janet Rivers were treated with efficient indifference. The Torres family was barely tolerated. Strike 3. His airline had a discrimination problem. At customer service, Marcus watched Lisa Park explain her hotel mix-up to agent Donna Martinez. Donna's response was coldly procedural, until Marcus suggested asking about Skybridge's accommodation partnerships. Technically, doesn't qualify since it's not our fault, Donna initially replied, then recognizing an opportunity to help. But you're a Skybridge Rewards member. Let me check distressed passenger rates. 20 minutes later, Lisa had accommodations, but only because she'd encountered the right agent at the right moment. The system could help, but passengers had to know to ask, and agents had to choose to assist. Walking to his hotel shuttle, Marcus realized his first flight had exposed problems far deeper than operational inefficiency. Skybridge was developing a culture of selective service that discriminated based on passenger demographics. In exactly 119 hours, this pattern would explode into the most viral airline confrontation in social media history. But first, he had 3 more flights to survive. 24 hours later, Marcus boarded Skybridge Flight 1247 to Atlanta, settling into 31C for what would prove even more revealing than his first flight. The aircraft was oversold, boarding was 45 minutes delayed, and the gate agent's announcements dripped with barely concealed irritation. Ladies and gentlemen, we're delayed due to crew rest requirements. We'll board when our crew arrives from their connection. No apology, no explanation of passenger rights, no proactive assistance, just bureaucratic indifference. Marcus watched frustrated passengers check phones, manage restless children, miss connecting flights. Skybridge staff offered no help beyond terse responses to direct questions. When boarding finally began, Marcus found himself next to the Torres family again. Apparently, their Disney vacation required another Skybridge connection through the hub of broken dreams. Mr. Martin Carlos exclaimed with genuine excitement, "What are the odds? Small world getting smaller. How was Boston beautiful city? But Elena got sick on the harbor cruise." He indicated their 5-year-old looking pale and miserable, hoping she's better before Disney tomorrow. During taxi, Elena began looking seriously airsick. Maria pressed the call button with growing anxiety. Kevin Walsh's response was textbook indifference. Air sickness bags in the seat pocket. "We'll be airborne shortly." He moved on without offering comfort or additional assistance. Marcus watched Maria's face disappointment that had calcified into resignation. This was what they expected from air travel now. Hope was dead. David Kim, the tech entrepreneur across the aisle, was brutal in his assessment. 8 years flying Skybridge, but I'm switching to Delta next month. Service has become completely impersonal. Reliability is garbage. Last month they stranded me overnight with 0 accommodation help. What kept you loyal this long? Loyalty points mostly. And they used to have the best Atlanta routes. But loyalty only goes so far when the experience keeps degrading every quarter. Behind them, single mother Carol Martinez, struggled with a malfunctioning entertainment system, while her teenage son, Miguel, looked devastated about missing his in-flight movie. When Carol flagged Jennifer Walsh for help, the response was dismissive corporate speak. "Those systems are finicky. Use your own device. We don't have tablets or premium Wi-Fi. This was supposed to be his entertainment for the flight." Jennifer shrugged without genuine concern. "Sorry, company policy, no refunds for technical issues." Marcus watched Miguel's crushed expression and Carol's embarrassment at not being able to provide alternatives. When had Skybridge become so rigid about service recovery? When had company policy become an excuse for not caring? The complimentary snack, a pathetically small pretzel bag, felt almost insulting for an $89 ticket. The beverage service was rushed and impersonal, flight attendants barely making eye contact as they distributed drinks like they were feeding zoo animals. Approaching Atlanta, Marcus overheard a conversation that crystallized his growing concerns. "I'm done with Skybridge after this trip," said a businesswoman in her 40s. 3 delays in 5 flights. Customer service is non-existent. My assistant's switching all bookings to American. The CEO used to care about service, her companion replied. Marcus Thompson built a reputation on passenger treatment, but I heard he's gotten disconnected from operations, more focused on Wall Street metrics than actual customers. Every word hit like a physical blow. These weren't unreasonable passengers. They were loyal customers making rational decisions to take business elsewhere because of leadership failures. His leadership failures. Landing revealed more systematic problems. Kevin and Jennifer Walsh, stationed at the exit, offered perfunctory thanks for flying acknowledgments, but their warmth varied dramatically based on passenger appearance. Business travelers in expensive suits got genuine smiles. The Torres family barely got acknowledged. As Elena still looked sick and the family struggled with their stroller, neither flight attendant offered assistance. Marcus helped again, earning Maria's grateful smile. "You're an angel, Mr. Martin. It's people like you who make traveling bearable." The airline employees seemed like they'd rather be anywhere else on Earth. Walking through Atlanta's terminal, his own home base where no Skybridge employee recognized him, Marcus reflected on the growing disconnect between corporate messaging and operational reality. Skybridge advertised friendly service and caring for every passenger, but delivered increasingly indifferent transactional experiences that discriminated based on passenger demographics. His notebook filled with damning observations, but his understanding of customer frustration deepened even more. These weren't people with unrealistic expectations. They were paying customers who simply wanted basic dignity and professionalism. The discrimination Dr. Chen had quantified was becoming undeniably clear through direct experience. Passengers of color, families with children, anyone who didn't fit the premium business traveler profile received measurably inferior service. In exactly 95 hours, this systematic discrimination would explode into viral infamy when Christina Vale poured coffee on the wrong passenger. Skybridge Flight 892 from Atlanta to Houston featured Marcus in Seat 12A Premium Economy, which cost an additional $127 for promises of enhanced comfort and service. The seat was indeed wider, with more legroom, but as the flight progressed, Marcus discovered that premium pricing didn't translate to premium treatment, a disconnect representing millions in potential revenue loss. David Kim occupied 12B again, recognizing Marcus immediately. "Martin, either we're both stalking each other or Skybridge has serious routing issues. Business calls everywhere. How was your Atlanta layover nightmare 6 hours instead of 3? Skybridge customer service couldn't get meal vouchers or lounge access despite my mid-tier status. $60 on airport food sitting on terminal floors because gate areas were overcrowded like refugee camps." Another service recovery failure. Premium passengers weren't getting the assistance they'd paid extra to receive. Flight attendants, Jennifer Walsh and Grace Mitchell served the premium economy cabin. Grace, perhaps 55 with platinum hair and decades of experience, provided more polished service than Jennifer, but with disturbing selectivity that would have made Jim Crow proud. To the well-dressed businessman in 11A, Grace was effusive. "Welcome aboard. Sir, champagne wine or soft drink? I have your preferred selection ready." To David Kim beverage, tone noticeably cooler, like she was serving a trespasser. To Marcus, something to drink, almost dismissive, barely making eye contact. When the businessman requested an extra pillow, Grace retrieved it immediately with genuine warmth. Marcus made the same request 30 minutes later. "I'll see what's available." She never returned. "Notice the service differences," David whispered with growing anger. "Hard to miss. It's like watching a masterclass in discrimination. It's gotten worse the last 2 years. I document it now thinking about complaints, but what's the point? Airlines don't give a damn anymore about anything except shareholder returns." The premium dining was a lukewarm sandwich, upscale crackers, and a cookie, hardly justifying the significant upcharge. But more troubling was Grace's treatment of Carol Martinez, who had also upgraded for the flight with her son Miguel. When Carol asked about connecting flight information, Grace was brusque and unhelpful. "Check the monitors or use the app." "I tried, but it's not loading properly. We have a tight connection to Dallas." "That's not something I can help with. Talk to gate agents in Houston." Marcus watched Carol flush with embarrassment, while Miguel looked uncomfortable with his mother's public dismissal. The businessman from 11A shook his head disapprovingly at Grace's behavior. Mid-flight conversations revealed more customer frustration. "Remember when Skybridge was known for friendly crews?" one passenger said. "My mother chose them because flight attendants were helpful and welcoming. That was before they went public and sold their souls. Now they're like every other airline pack people and get them from A to B as cheaply as possible. Screw customer experience." Sad, really. They used to make flying feel special even in coach. Now even premium products feel like you're being tolerated rather than served. 20 minutes before landing, the captain announced air traffic delays. Grace's response was typical of Skybridge's current approach. "Due to congestion, we're running 20 minutes late. If you have connections, check with gate agents about rebooking. We apologize for the inconvenience. No proactive assistance. No passenger identification for tight connections. No coordination with ground staff. Passengers managed disruptions completely alone." Carol's anxiety grew visibly as she calculated connection possibilities. When she approached Grace for help, "I can't do anything about connections from up here. You'll need customer service in the terminal." David leaned over to Marcus with disgust. "This is exactly the problem. They take your money for premium service, then abandon you when problems arise. It's business suicide. Customer acquisition costs are so much higher than retention costs, but they're treating loyal customers like disposable transactions." Landing revealed more selective service patterns. Grace warmly helped the businessman with his carry-on, while completely ignoring David and Marcus. In Houston's terminal, Marcus watched Carol struggle to find connection information while Skybridge employees walked past without offering assistance. At customer service, a single overwhelmed agent handled 6 passengers with various problems. When Carol finally reached the desk, "Ma'am, your connection departs from gate C14. Boarding begins in 12 minutes. Take the train to Terminal C and re-clear security." "Is that enough time?" Carol asked anxiously. The agent shrugged without empathy. "Depends on security lines. Can't guarantee anything. No offers to contact the gate. No expedited processing assistance. No acknowledgement of the stress this caused a mother traveling for her son's college interview." Marcus intervened with advice about security expediting, earning Carol's gratitude. "Thank you, Martin. You've been more helpful than anyone wearing a Skybridge uniform." Watching Carol and Miguel rush toward their connection, Marcus reflected on devastating business implications. Premium passengers paid significantly more for experiences only marginally better than economy, and service recovery was equally indifferent across all classes. If customers like David Kim were switching airlines, and if families like Carol's were getting poor treatment during stressful situations, Skybridge was hemorrhaging customers across multiple segments simultaneously. Grace Mitchell's behavior represented more than individual prejudice. It was systematic service discrimination that had become normalized throughout the organization. In exactly 71 hours, this discrimination would reach its ugly climax, when Christina Vale crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Skybridge Flight 1456 from Houston to Denver placed Marcus in business class seat 3A, where he expected significantly improved service quality. The physical environment was indeed better leather seats, proper legroom, functional entertainment systems, but the human dynamics revealed more disturbing patterns that would make his father roll over in his grave. His fellow passengers included Robert Palmer, a wealthy executive whose expensive attire and gold watch screamed privilege and entitlement, and Dr. Michael Torres, the father from the family Marcus had encountered earlier, now traveling alone to a medical conference. Dr. Torres Marcus turned with recognition. "How's Elena feeling?" "Much better. Thank you. Maria took the kids to Disney while I handle this Denver conference." Michael looked up from his medical journal. "Nice to fly without managing two small children for once." Lead flight attendant Grace Mitchell served business class with notably more polish than her premium economy performance, but her selective attention patterns remained consistent and troubling, like a discrimination algorithm made flesh. To Robert Palmer. "Mr. Palmer, wonderful to see you again. Your usual scotch and soda. And I believe you prefer the crossword puzzle." Palmer smiled broadly. "Grace, you're incredible." "Yes to both. How's your daughter at Colorado State graduating with honors next month?" "Thank you for asking." To Dr. Torres. "Doctor, welcome aboard. Beverage professional, but noticeably cooler." 2. Marcus, sir, something to drink. Perfunctory, already moving on. The contrast was unmistakable. Marcus noticed Dr. Torres observing the differential treatment with the weary recognition of someone who'd experienced it countless times. "Interesting service patterns," Michael murmured once Grace moved forward. "You've noticed it too." "Hard not to. 3 years flying this route monthly. I've learned to expect variable attention based on melanin levels." His voice carried the fatigue of someone tired of fighting windmills. As service continued, Grace spent extensive time chatting with Palmer about golf and business trips, while efficiently processing Dr. Torres and Marcus without conversation. When Palmer requested briefcase storage assistance, Grace immediately helped and rearranged overhead space. When a young black passenger in 7A made the same request, Grace pointed vaguely, "Should be room back there." The meal service revealed more systematic discrimination. Palmer received detailed menu explanations, wine pairings, and Grace's personal recommendations. Dr. Torres got efficient service with basic information. Marcus received his meal with minimal interaction. "The patterns are quite systematic," Dr. Torres observed quietly. "I document them now because they're so consistent across flights and crew members." "Have you filed complaints?" "What's the point?" Form responses about taking concerns seriously and additional training, but nothing changes. If anything, it's gotten significantly worse. Mid-flight, an incident crystallized Marcus's concerns about the depth of cultural rot. James Rodriguez, a Hispanic passenger in 8B, had a malfunctioning power outlet. When he pressed the call button, Grace's response was dismissive. "Electrical systems are finicky on older aircraft. Try finding another outlet if you can." Are there other seats with working power? Can't move passengers mid-flight. Company policy. 20 minutes later, Palmer mentioned his reading light was dim. Grace immediately moved him to a different seat with theatrical concern. Can't have our frequent flyers uncomfortable. The hypocrisy was so blatant, it was almost performance art. Dr. Torres shook his head in disgust, and even Palmer looked uncomfortable with the special treatment. This is awkward, Palmer admitted to Marcus. I appreciate good service, but watching other passengers get ignored feels wrong. You're a regular on this route, 4 years twice monthly. Grace knows my preferences, which is nice, but... He glanced toward James Rodriguez, still struggling with his dying laptop battery. Service shouldn't depend on who you know or what you look like. Marcus was struck by Palmer's awareness. Even passengers benefiting from preferential treatment recognized the discrimination problems and felt uncomfortable about them. During final cabin prep, Grace's selective attention continued with clockwork precision. With Palmer Hope, Denver goes well. Give my regards to your wife in Houston. With Dr. Torres, Dr. Seatback and table. With Marcus, Sir Seatback up. The pattern was so systematic, it seemed scripted, yet Grace appeared unconscious of her discriminatory behavior. This suggested cultural problems so embedded, they'd become invisible to perpetrators. In Denver's terminal, Marcus encountered Dr. Torres at baggage claim. I have to ask, what's your impression of that flight eye-opening in the worst possible way? The service inconsistencies were pretty obvious. It's been like this across multiple airlines, but Skybridge has gotten particularly bad. I'm considering formal complaints, maybe consulting civil rights attorneys. The patterns are too consistent for coincidence. Marcus felt ice water in his veins. Passengers were contemplating legal action over systematic service discrimination. Have you connected with other passengers experiencing similar treatment? Absolutely. Growing networks, sharing experiences online. Skybridge appears frequently in discrimination discussions. The company seems completely oblivious to how serious this is becoming from a legal standpoint. Dr. Torres handed Marcus his business card. If you want to compare notes, I'd be interested. What happened today wasn't just poor service. It was systematic bias that could become major legal liability for the airline. Walking to his hotel, Marcus reflected on the business implications. Passengers paying premium prices for business class were receiving treatment that varied based on demographics rather than ticket class. Passengers like Dr. Torres and James Rodriguez paid identical fares to Robert Palmer, but received inferior service based solely on appearance and race. Even more troubling, passengers were documenting these patterns and considering legal remedies. The potential for class action discrimination lawsuits was becoming very real, and evidence accumulated with every flight. Grace Mitchell's behavior represented systematic training failures or cultural problems embedded throughout the organization. Either way, responsibility ultimately rested with leadership. His leadership. In exactly 47 hours, this systematic discrimination would explode into the most viral airline confrontation in social media history, watched live by hundreds of thousands of viewers as Christina Vale poured coffee on the wrong passenger. But first, Marcus had to survive first class, where the discrimination would reach its ugly climax. Denver International Airport's late afternoon chaos surrounded Marcus as he made his way to gate B-23 for Skybridge Flight 3847 to Los Angeles. In exactly 3 hours and 42 minutes, this flight would become the most viral airline confrontation in social media history. But right now, it was just another delayed flight with another service failure. Ladies and gentlemen, Flight 3847 is delayed 90 minutes due to crew scheduling issues, announced the gate agent without looking up. Revised departure, 7:45 p.m. We apologize for the inconvenience. No passenger rights explanation. No meal vouchers for the dinner hour delay. No proactive rebooking assistance. Marcus watched frustrated travelers line up at the overwhelmed customer service desk, like refugees seeking asylum. In line ahead of him stood Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a professional woman whose confident bearing and intense phone conversation suggested someone accustomed to being heard in courtrooms and boardrooms. "This is Skybridge's third delay in 2 months," she said into her phone with lawyerly precision. "Their customer service is non-existent, and I'm documenting everything because this pattern is becoming legally actionable under federal civil rights statutes." At customer service agent Patricia Wong's responses were scripted. Defensiveness. Weather and crew scheduling are outside our control. No meal compensation required for delays under 4 hours. Rebooking fees may apply for passenger-initiated changes. The passenger ahead of Marcus, an elderly man with a walking cane, explained that the delay would cause him to miss his grandson's graduation ceremony. Patricia's response was coldly procedural. "I can put you on tomorrow morning's flight for a $150 change fee, but we can't waive fees for personal scheduling conflicts." Marcus watched the man's face crumble with devastation. This was someone's most important family moment being destroyed by airline inflexibility, and Skybridge's response was charging him more money for the privilege of further heartbreak. When Marcus reached the desk, Patricia's demeanor shifted dramatically upon seeing his first-class ticket. "Mr. Thompson, as a first-class passenger, I can check partner airlines for available seats or authorize meal vouchers and expedited rebooking." The contrast was stark and disgusting. The elderly man listened with obvious bitterness as Patricia offered Marcus services she'd denied him minutes earlier. "That's interesting," Marcus said carefully. "You told the gentleman before me that change fees couldn't be waived, but you're offering me expedited rebooking." Patricia looked uncomfortable. "First-class passengers have different service provisions. Where is that policy documented?" "It's internal guidelines, sir." Marcus declined the special treatment and took a seat near Dr. Rodriguez, who was now collecting passenger information and taking detailed notes with obvious legal training. "Excuse me." Marcus approached during a conversation lull. "I noticed you documenting delay issues. Are you an attorney? Civil rights law?" Elena replied, studying Marcus with sharp intelligence. "And yes, I'm building systematic evidence because service failures correlate with concerning demographic patterns that could support federal discrimination cases." She showed him legal pad pages filled with detailed observations about differential treatment based on race, age, and ticket class. 2 years flying this route monthly, and Skybridge's discrimination has become blatant enough to support class action litigation. Today's delay response premium passengers getting options denied to economy passengers is part of a larger discriminatory pattern. What kind of pattern? Systematic bias in service delivery complaint handling accommodation decisions. I'm building a class action case because individual complaints disappear into corporate black holes, but systematic discrimination across multiple flights could support federal civil rights action. Marcus's stomach dropped into his shoes. A civil rights attorney was actively building discrimination cases against his airline, and based on his week of observations, she had substantial evidence. "Have you tried working with Skybridge through normal channels?" Elena laughed bitterly. 6 formal complaints in 18 months. Form letter responses about additional training and commitment to improvement, but behavior never changes. If anything, it's gotten systematically worse. She gestured toward the gate chaos. "Look around. Which passengers get proactive assistance, and which are left to figure things out alone?" The patterns are consistent across flights. Crew members, airports. This isn't individual employee bias. It's systematic cultural failure that starts with leadership and training. As boarding finally began, Marcus entered first class with growing dread about what final revelations awaited. Dr. Rodriguez's legal documentation had provided expert perspective on discrimination he'd observed throughout his journey, and her systematic case-building suggested Skybridge's problems were already attracting serious legal scrutiny that could destroy the company. The first-class cabin gleamed with recent renovations, leather seats, modern entertainment, elegant spacing. 12 of 16 seats were occupied by the typical mixed business executives, an anniversary couple, several upgrade passengers, and Dr. Rodriguez herself in 1F. Taking seat 2A. Marcus observed the crew assigned to first-class service. Lead flight attendant Christina Vale appeared to be in her late 40s, with platinum blonde hair and polished efficiency, suggesting decades of experience. Assisting were Jake Morrison, who seemed nervous around Christina, and Lisa Torres, whom Marcus recognized as Carlos Torres' sister-in-law, working part-time through college. As passengers settled, Marcus noted cabin demographics carefully. Of 12 passengers, he and Dr. Rodriguez were the only people of color. The remaining 10 were white, predominantly male, generally well-dressed in expensive business attire. Christina moved through the cabin, distributing welcome champagne with practiced efficiency, but Marcus immediately noticed familiar discriminatory patterns that would soon explode into viral infamy. To Richard Blackstone, a distinguished businessman in 1A. Mr. Blackstone, wonderful to see you again. Your usual champagne, and I've saved today's Wall Street Journal. Christina, you're wonderful as always. How's your daughter at Colorado State graduating this month with honors? Thank you for asking. To the anniversary couple in 3A and 3B, congratulations on your anniversary. Champagne to celebrate. To Dr. Rodriguez in 1F, Dr. Champagne or wine. Notably cooler tone, like she was addressing hired help. When Christina reached Marcus in 2A, her demeanor shifted subtly but unmistakably. Her smile became forced eye contact, minimal champagne. Yes, thank you. She handed him the flute with minimal courtesy before moving to Maya Johnson, a young black professional in 4A, whose treatment was similarly dismissive. Tommy Chen, a college student in 5B, documenting his travel experience for social media, discreetly filmed cabin interactions for his YouTube channel. His camera was capturing more than typical travel content. It was documenting systematic discrimination that would soon explode across social media platforms. Sandra Mills in 6A seemed increasingly uncomfortable observing the blatant service disparities. As the aircraft pushed back from the gate, Christina made standard announcements about safety and meal service. But Marcus was already anticipating that the next 2.5 hours would reveal Skybridge's discrimination problems in their most systematic and disturbing form. What he couldn't know was that in exactly 1 hour and 23 minutes, Christina Vale would pour coffee on him, while making racist comments, all captured live on social media for hundreds of thousands of viewers. The confrontation ahead would expose not just individual prejudice, but institutional racism so deeply embedded that it would require complete cultural transformation to address. The stage was set for the most viral airline confrontation in history. Flight 3847 reached cruising altitude as Christina Vale began the elaborate first-class meal service that was supposed to represent Skybridge's pinnacle of hospitality. In exactly 1 hour and 17 minutes, she would pour coffee on the CEO and ignite the most viral airline confrontation in social media history. But right now, she was just another flight attendant with deep-seated biases and a platinum blonde attitude. Marcus observed every interaction from seat 2A, his notebook discreetly positioned to document the systematic discrimination that was already becoming impossible to ignore. The cabin demographics told the story immediately. 12 passengers, 10 white, 2 black. The service patterns that followed would be captured live for the world to see. Richard Blackstone in 1A clearly enjoyed regular customer status, engaging Christina in familiar conversation about mutual acquaintances and shared route experiences. Frank and Dorothy Weber in 3A-3B were celebrating their 40th anniversary with their first-ever first-class upgrade paid for by their children. Dr. Elena Rodriguez in 1F continued taking discreet legal notes, her systematic documentation habits evident in every pen stroke. Maya Johnson in 4A worked intensely on her laptop, preparing presentations for Los Angeles business meetings that could advance her career. Tommy Chen in 5B was indeed filming his travel experience for his YouTube channel, College Travel Hacks, though he was about to capture content that would break the internet. His camera was positioned to document general cabin ambiance, but it was recording systematic discrimination that would soon explode across social media. Sandra Mills in 6A kept glancing around with growing discomfort at the service disparities she was witnessing. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to first-class service aboard Skybridge Airlines, Christina announced over the intercom with practiced professionalism that masked deeper prejudices. I'm Christina Vale, your lead flight attendant this evening. We'll begin meal service shortly, with signature appetizers followed by entree selections. Mr. Morrison and Ms. Torres will assist me in providing the personalized attention that exemplifies Skybridge's commitment to excellence. The personalized attention promise would prove grimly ironic, as Christina's subsequent interactions revealed systematic discrimination that was about to be captured for millions of viewers. To Richard Blackstone. Richard, I've arranged your preferred wine selection today, and chef prepared the salmon exactly how you like it. Light seasoning sauce on the side. Christina, you spoil me. This is why I've stayed loyal to Skybridge all these years. Service like this is rare in the industry. Passengers like you make our job enjoyable. 25 years in this business, and it's relationships with regulars that keep the work meaningful. To the Webers. Mr. and Mrs. Weber, congratulations on your anniversary. Today's menu features beef tenderloin grilled salmon or vegetarian pasta. May I explain the preparations? This is all new to us. Frank. Weber smiled warmly. We usually fly coach, but our kids surprised us with this upgrade. What would you recommend? The salmon is quite popular. I'll put you down for 2, unless you prefer something else. Courteous, but notably brief compared to her extended conversation with Blackstone. To Dr. Rodriguez. Dr. Rodriguez beef salmon, or pasta. Voice noticeably cooler, like she was taking a food order at a drive-thru. Salmon, please, and a white wine pairing. I'll bring that with the meal service. Kurt already moving without waiting for any response. To Marcus. Sir, beef salmon, or pasta. The salmon sounds excellent, and whatever wine you'd recommend to complement it. Christina made a note without the detailed attention shown to Blackstone. I'll bring that out shortly. To Maya Johnson. Same perfunctory service menu options presented efficiently, but without any warmth or genuine interest. To Tommy Chen. Notably friendlier treatment. Are you documenting your first-class experience? How exciting, the salmon is really excellent today, and I'd be happy to explain our wine selections in detail. Even within discriminatory patterns, there were nuances. Christina seemed more comfortable with Tommy, perhaps because his youth made him appear less threatening, or perhaps because his documentation activities made her more conscious of providing good service for the camera. To Sandra Mills. Appropriate deference for an older white passenger. Mrs. Mills, our chef, takes particular pride in the beef tenderloin today. Very popular with our most discerning passengers. The meal service revealed even more troubling dynamics. Jake Morrison served Richard Blackstone with elaborate presentation, heated plates, proper wine service, garnished, presentation detailed, preparation explanations. When Lisa Torres served Marcus Maya and Dr. Rodriguez, the service was efficient, but notably less ceremonious. Same food, but presentation lacked the special touches provided to certain passengers based purely on their appearance. "This is uncomfortable," Sandra Mills whispered to her husband, loud enough for Marcus to overhear. "That lead flight attendant is clearly treating people differently based on—" "Well, it's obvious what it's based on." "I noticed too," Gerald replied quietly. "Makes me feel awkward about the attention we're getting." During meal service, Marcus engaged Maya Johnson in conversation. "Business trip to LA, marketing presentation for a potential client that could really advance my career." Maya lowered her voice with obvious frustration. "First time in first class, and honestly, I expected much better service for what I paid. Service seems pretty inconsistent." "That's diplomatic. I've been watching how they treat different passengers, and the patterns are pretty damn obvious." Dr. Rodriguez leaned into their conversation with legal precision. "I've been documenting systematic discrimination across multiple Skybridge flights for 18 months. What we're witnessing tonight is completely consistent with federal civil rights violations that could support class action litigation." "You're an attorney?" Maya asked. "Civil rights law. I'm seriously considering whether this pattern of behavior supports a federal complaint. The discriminatory treatment is too systematic and consistent to be coincidental." Marcus felt his stomach tighten listening to two first-class passengers paying customers discussing potential legal action against his airline. The discrimination problems he'd observed throughout his journey were reaching the point where passengers were building federal cases. Tommy Chen, still filming discreetly, had captured numerous service disparities throughout the flight. Marcus could see him reviewing footage on his camera, his expression suggesting recognition of troubling patterns that his audience would soon witness. As meal service concluded, Christina made satisfaction rounds through the cabin, her attention varying dramatically based on passenger demographics. With Blackstone Richard, "How was everything? Can I get you an after-dinner drink or coffee?" With the Webers, Mr. and Mrs. Weber, "I hope you enjoyed the meal. Coffee or dessert?" With Dr. Rodriguez, Doctor finished, dismissive, already looking past her. With Marcus, "Sir, anything else?" Perfunctory, no genuine interest in his satisfaction. The contrast was so blatant that Tommy Chen was obviously recording it for his YouTube channel, and Sandra Mills looked genuinely distressed by the discriminatory behavior she was witnessing. "This is wrong," Sandra said quietly to her husband. "I've never seen service discrimination this obvious. These people paid the same first-class fare we did." Marcus realized discrimination had become so systematic that even passengers receiving preferential treatment were uncomfortable with the inequity. Skybridge's cultural problems were alienating customers across all demographics. As the flight continued toward Los Angeles, Marcus prepared for what he sensed would be a defining confrontation. Christina Vale's discriminatory patterns were so consistent and blatant that they demanded response, and Marcus understood his role as undercover observer was about to shift to active intervention. In exactly 42 minutes, Christina would pour coffee on him while making racist comments, all captured live on Tommy Chen's social media stream for hundreds of thousands of viewers. The most viral airline confrontation in history was about to begin. In exactly 31 minutes, Christina Vale would end her 25-year career with the most racist airline incident ever caught on live video. But right now, she was just serving coffee to passengers she'd systematically discriminated against for the entire flight. Marcus opened his laptop to compile notes from his week-long undercover journey. The document detailed systematic service failures, discriminatory treatment patterns, and cultural problems extending far beyond operational metrics. As he typed, he occasionally requested coffee, which Christina had acknowledged curtly before disappearing into the galley with visible irritation. Tommy Chen's camera remained discreetly positioned, capturing general cabin ambiance, while unknowingly documenting the prelude to viral history. His YouTube live stream showed 847 viewers watching typical travel content. They were about to witness the most explosive airline confrontation ever recorded. Dr. Elena Rodriguez reviewed legal documents while continuing to observe cabin interactions with the trained eye of someone building federal discrimination cases. Maya Johnson polished her presentation while occasionally glancing around with obvious frustration at the continued differential service. Richard Blackstone engaged Christina in his third extended conversation about mutual industry acquaintances. Their familiarity was genuine, but came at the expense of attention to other passengers waiting for basic service requests to be fulfilled. Christina's clearly playing favorites, Sandra Mills whispered to her husband. "It's making me uncomfortable." When Christina finally returned from the galley carrying a coffee tray, she began service with her usual selective attention. Blackstone first with elaborate presentation and conversation about cream and sugar preferences. The Webbers received efficient service with polite satisfaction inquiries. Sandra Mills got appropriate deference for an older white passenger. Then Christina approached Marcus with a coffee cup, and something in her demeanor had shifted. Whether it was accumulated frustration from a long day, resentment at his earlier questions about wine recommendations, or simply the expression of prejudice that had been building throughout the flight, Marcus would never know. But as Christina extended the cup toward him, it tilted suddenly and deliberately, sending scalding coffee cascading across his laptop keyboard onto his lap and soaking his shirt. The liquid burned through fabric to skin, and Marcus couldn't suppress a sharp intake of breath. "Your kind doesn't belong up here," Christina said, clearly, her voice pitched for nearby passengers to hear. "This is for real customers, not people like you who probably can't even afford to be here." Her ice blue eyes were cold with unmistakable contempt as she deliberately set the half-empty cup on his tray table without offering napkins or assistance. The cabin went dead silent. Tommy Chen's camera captured everything in perfect high definition. His live stream viewer count spiked from 847 to 3,000 as comments began flooding in. "OMG, did she really just say that? This is insane. Are you getting this on video?" Dr. Rodriguez looked up sharply from her documents, her legal training immediately recognizing a federal civil rights violation in progress. Maya Johnson's mouth fell open in disbelief. Even Richard Blackstone stopped mid-conversation, his expression shifting from confusion to horror. "Excuse me," Marcus said quietly, his voice steady despite burning pain across his chest. "What did you just say to me?" Christina's eyes widened. Passengers rarely challenged her directly, especially black passengers who usually just accepted poor treatment. "I said, accidents happen," she replied loudly, clearly different words than she'd actually spoken. "Maybe you should be more careful with your expensive electronics." She gestured dismissively toward his coffee-soaked laptop. Tommy's live stream exploded to 8,000 viewers as comments flooded in. "She's lying." "We all heard what she really said. This is going viral." "That's not what you said," Marcus replied firmly, maintaining eye contact despite the humiliation and pain. Dr. Rodriguez immediately stood up. "No, it's not what she said. I heard exactly what she said." Her voice carried courtroom authority that commanded attention. "And we all saw you deliberately pour that coffee on this gentleman." She looked around the cabin with prosecutorial intensity. "Didn't we?" Tommy Chen nodded immediately, his live stream now showing 12,000 viewers. "Got it all on video." The deliberate, pour the racist comment, everything. Comments exploded across his screen. "Save this video. Call the police. Sue her ass." This is 2024, not 1924. Maya Johnson found her voice with righteous anger. "Yes, I saw it too. That was completely intentional and totally racist." Sandra Mills looked stricken, but whispered audibly. She said something awful about his kind not belonging. Gerald, you heard it too. Gerald Mills nodded reluctantly but clearly. I heard it. Other passengers began acknowledging what they'd witnessed. The young man in 5A nodded vigorously. The businessman in 7B looked uncomfortable, but didn't deny the incident. But Richard Blackstone remained silent, clearly torn between his relationship with Christina and the obvious injustice he'd witnessed. Tommy's viewer count hit 18,000 as the story began spreading across platforms. Breaking racist flight attendant attacks. Black passenger live. Most racist airline incident ever caught on video. Viral Skybridge employee pours coffee on passenger. It's all right, Marcus said to Dr. Rodriguez, accepting napkins from her tray table. Thank you for speaking up. It's not all right, Dr. Rodriguez replied with fierce determination. My name is Dr. Elena Rodriguez, civil rights attorney. What just happened is textbook discriminatory treatment under federal public accommodations law. She turned to Christina with prosecutorial intensity. I need your employee identification number immediately. Christina's professional composure began cracking. I don't know what you think you heard, but I've been with this airline for 25 years, and I've never treated a passenger differently based on race. Dr. Rodriguez finished sharply. Because I've been documenting your discriminatory behavior this entire flight, as have multiple witnesses, and as have the cabin security cameras recording everything in high definition. Tommy Chen held up his phone viewer count now at 25,000. It's all on my live stream too. 25,000 people just watched this happen. The deliberate spill, the racist comment. Everything. Comments flooded his stream. This is going viral worldwide. Someone call CNN. #Skybridge. Racism fire. Her now. You can't post that, Christina said, panic creeping into her voice. There are privacy policies, not for federal civil rights violations, Dr. Rodriguez interjected sharply. Not for discriminatory assault captured on video. Jake Morrison and Lisa Torres emerged from the galley drawn by the commotion and raised voices. Lisa looked horrified seeing Marcus soaked with coffee, Christina defensive and panicking passengers openly hostile toward the crew. Christina, what happened? Jake asked nervously, sensing career-ending trouble. Minor spill. Passenger was careless with his laptop. That's not true, Maya Johnson said with fierce conviction. She poured coffee on him deliberately and made racist comments about his kind not belonging in first class. Lisa Torres immediately grabbed napkins and approached Marcus. Sir, I'm so sorry. Are those burns serious? Should we call for medical assistance? I'll be fine, Marcus assured her, though the pain was considerable. But we need to address what just happened here. Christina stepped forward aggressively, her desperation making her dangerous. There's no need to escalate this situation. It was an accident and I've apologized. You haven't apologized, Dr. Rodriguez pointed out sharply. You've denied responsibility and blamed the victim for your deliberate actions. Tommy Chen's viewer count hit 35,000 as the story spread across social platforms. Chat is exploding, he announced. People are demanding justice. #Skybridge. Racism is trending on Twitter. 35,000 people are watching this. Christina's voice cracked with panic and growing exponentially. #Skybridge racism just hit trending status. People are sharing this across every platform. The cabin erupted into multiple angry conversations as passengers processed the racist incident. Sandra Mills spoke intensely to her husband about filing complaints. The anniversary couple looked shocked and disgusted. Passengers who hadn't directly witnessed the coffee incident were learning about it from others and expressing outrage. This is going viral worldwide, Tommy announced to his massive audience. 47,000 viewers now. News outlets are requesting permission to rebroadcast. Christina turned to Tommy with desperation. "Turn that off. This is harassment. This is documentation," Dr. Rodriguez corrected with legal authority. Exactly what federal civil rights cases require. Marcus remained seated still, dabbing coffee stains, while the confrontation developed around him. Christina was clearly losing control of the situation. Jake Morrison looked terrified about his career, and Lisa Torres was trying to provide genuine assistance while managing damage control. Christina Jake whispered urgently, "Maybe we should call the captain immediately." "The captain doesn't need to be involved in a minor service issue." Christina snapped, her authority rapidly eroding as more passengers expressed disgust with her racist behavior. Minor service issue. Maya Johnson stood up with righteous fury. She just assaulted a passenger and made racist comments about people like him not belonging in first class. "That's not minor anything." Richard Blackstone finally spoke, his voice heavy with moral discomfort. "Christina, I've known you for years, and this behavior isn't like you. What you did to this gentleman was completely inappropriate and unacceptable." Christina turned toward him with desperate pleading. "Richard, you know me. You know I'm not prejudiced against anyone. I know what I saw and heard," Blackstone replied firmly. "And I cannot and will not defend racist behavior." The confrontation was spiraling beyond Christina's control. Tommy's live stream reached 63,000 viewers, with major news outlets requesting rebroadcast permissions. Comments demanded immediate consequences. "Fire her now. This is criminal assault. Sue the airline, press charges." Dr. Rodriguez took out her phone and began recording her own evidence. "For the legal record, I'm Dr. Elena Rodriguez, civil rights attorney, passenger on Skybridge Flight 3847. I witnessed flight attendant Christina Vale deliberately pour coffee on passenger Martin Thompson while making explicit racist comments about people like him not belonging in first class." "Stop recording," Christina demanded desperately. "This is harassment. This is evidence." "Doctor," Rodriguez replied with prosecutorial calm. "Which federal civil rights cases require for successful prosecution?" Marcus realized the situation had escalated beyond anything Christina could control through denial or intimidation. Multiple passengers were documenting the incident. Social media was amplifying the story in real time across the globe, and a civil rights attorney was building a formal federal case record. The discrimination he'd observed throughout his journey had culminated in this moment of explicit racism that would be impossible to ignore, minimize, or corporate spin away. In exactly 7 minutes, he would reveal his identity and change everything. The first-class cabin buzzed with angry conversations as passengers processed the most racist airline incident ever captured on live video. Christina stood isolated near the galley, her 25-year career crumbling in real time as Tommy Chen's live stream reached 78,000 viewers and #Skybridge racism exploded across every social media platform. Comments flooded in, demanding justice. "This is the most racist thing I've ever seen. Fire her immediately. Press criminal charges. Sue the airline into bankruptcy. Everyone, please," Marcus said, standing from his seat with coffee-stained shirt and calm authority that immediately focused attention on him. "Christina, before this goes any further, I need to make a phone call." He pulled out his phone and dialed a number that connected directly to Skybridge's executive offices while the entire cabin watched, and Tommy's live stream audience grew by the thousands. "Victoria, it's Marcus. I need you to pull cabin security footage from Flight 3847 cameras 2 and 4, timestamp 8:47 p.m., Mountain Time immediately." Christina's face went white as printer paper. Who are you calling my CFO?" Marcus replied, maintaining eye contact with Christina while staying on the phone. "Victoria, I also need HR to review the employment file for Christina Vale. He looked directly at her. What's your employee number? I don't have to tell you that. Christina stammered with growing panic. Lisa Torres whispered the number with obvious reluctance and fear. Employee 2847 Marcus continued. Conference in legal counsel immediately. We have a federal discrimination incident with multiple witnesses and video evidence requiring immediate executive response. Tommy Chen's live stream exploded to 95,000 viewers as comments flooded in, demanding to know who Marcus was calling and why airline employees seemed terrified. Who is this guy? Why are they so scared? He must be management. This is getting crazy. Dr. Rodriguez stepped closer with growing suspicion. Are you airline management? Marcus ended his call and turned to address the cabin directly, knowing his next words would be heard by hundreds of thousands of people. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption to your flight. My name is Marcus Thompson. I'm the CEO and founder of Skybridge Airlines. The cabin erupted in gasps and shocked exclamations. Christina stumbled backward as if physically struck. Tommy Chen's livestream comments exploded as viewers realized they were watching a CEO reveal himself after experiencing racism on his own airline. Holy shit, the CEO. This just got real. He's the actual owner. She's so fired. You're Marcus Thompson. Richard Blackstone stared in complete disbelief. The actual CEO of Skybridge. The same Marcus confirmed. I've been flying undercover this week to understand passenger experiences on Skybridge flights. What just happened with Ms. Vale represents the systematic discrimination I've observed throughout our operation. Christina's legs gave out, and she collapsed into an empty seat, her face a mask of horror. Mr. Thompson, I didn't know. I thought you were just another passenger you could treat with contempt and racial slurs based on my skin color. Marcus finished quietly. You were right. I am just another passenger. That's exactly the point. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward with obvious satisfaction and legal excitement. Mr. Thompson, I'm Dr. Elena Rodriguez, civil rights attorney. I've been documenting discriminatory service patterns on Skybridge flights for 18 months. Tonight's racist incident is part of systematic discrimination affecting thousands of passengers. I know. I've been experiencing it firsthand all week. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Victoria confirming the incident was being handled as a Level 1 federal discrimination complaint. Dr. Rodriguez, I'd like to offer you a position heading our new Passenger Dignity Board with full authority to investigate and implement changes. I'm very interested, but I want real power to make meaningful changes, not just advisory input that gets ignored. Done. Tommy Chen held up his phone showing 127,000 viewers. Mr. Thompson, people are demanding to know what consequences there will be for this racist behavior. Marcus looked directly into Tommy's camera, addressing the massive audience, watching the confrontation unfold in real time. The consequences begin immediately. Ms. Vale, your employment with Skybridge Airlines is terminated effective this moment. Security will escort you off this aircraft upon landing. Comments exploded across the live stream. Justice. About time. This is how CEOs should handle racism. Respect for taking responsibility. Finally, some accountability. Christina began sobbing uncontrollably. Please, Mr. Thompson, 25 years with this company. I have a mortgage, a daughter in college. Please don't ruin my life over one mistake. You should have considered that before choosing to discriminate against passengers and pour coffee on someone while making racist comments, Dr. Rodriguez said with legal precision. Maya Johnson approached with obvious emotion. Mr. Thompson, thank you for handling this exactly the way you did. I've experienced similar racist treatment on multiple airlines, but I never thought anyone would take it seriously enough to do anything meaningful about it. Maya, would you be willing to document your experiences for our comprehensive reform program? Absolutely. And I want to help create real solutions, not just talk about problems. Richard Blackstone approached with visible discomfort and shame. Marcus, I owe you a sincere apology. I've flown with Christina for years, and I knew she treated some passengers differently based on race. I never spoke up because it was comfortable for me to receive preferential treatment. I was complicit in this discrimination. Richard recognizing it now matters. But you're absolutely right. Passenger silence enables discriminatory behavior to continue and escalate. Sandra Mills approached with her husband, both looking shaken. Mr. Thompson, we want you to know we've been deeply uncomfortable with the preferential treatment we received tonight, while watching other passengers get inferior service. It felt wrong then, and it feels shameful now. That kind of awareness is exactly what we need moving forward. Would you participate in passenger advisory committees about creating equitable service standards? Of course, what happened tonight was absolutely shameful, but your response gives us hope that real change is possible. Tommy's live stream audience had reached 158,000 viewers, with major news outlets requesting live interviews. The story was trending on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and every major social platform, with overwhelmingly positive responses to Marcus's immediate accountability and consequences. Real-time comments showed global support. Finally, a CEO with backbone. This is how you handle workplace racism. Never flying any other airline. Respect for taking responsibility. As the plane began descent into Los Angeles, Marcus's phone rang constantly, with media requests and corporate crisis communications. The discrimination incident had become the most watched airline accountability moment in social media history. Dr. Rodriguez was collecting signed witness statements from passengers willing to testify about Christina's systematic discriminatory behavior and explicit racist comments. 8 passengers provided detailed accounts of the deliberate coffee assault and racist language. This is the most comprehensively documented airline discrimination case I've ever encountered, Elena told Marcus. Multiple witnesses, high-definition video evidence from several sources, cabin security cameras, and immediate corporate acknowledgement and response. Lisa Torres approached nervously. Mr. Thompson, I want to apologize for what happened and for not speaking up sooner about Christina's treatment of passengers throughout the flight. Lisa, you showed integrity by helping when the situation escalated. What I need now is complete honesty about service culture problems. How widespread is this discriminatory behavior? Lisa glanced around to ensure Christina wasn't listening, then spoke with obvious relief at finally telling the truth. It's systematic, sir. Not every crew member, but common enough that passengers notice patterns. Training focuses on efficiency, and upselling almost nothing about treating everyone with equal dignity and respect. Some senior staff have developed preferences about which passengers deserve better service based on appearance and perceived social status. Are you willing to help us completely redesign training programs to address these cultural problems? Yes, sir. I became a flight attendant because I wanted to help people have positive experiences, not because I wanted to judge them based on their race or appearance. As passengers prepared to disembark, Marcus stood to address the cabin one final time, knowing his words would be heard by hundreds of thousands of viewers worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, I know this has been disturbing for everyone. I want to thank those who spoke up against racism and discrimination, and those who are willing to help us build a better airline that treats every passenger with dignity. What happened tonight was completely wrong, but your responses give me confidence. We can create an aviation industry that serves everyone fairly. The cabin erupted in genuine applause, not polite acknowledgement, but appreciation for leadership, willing to confront difficult problems directly and take immediate action. Tommy Chen was still streaming as passengers began deplaning his audience, exceeding 200,000 viewers. This has been the most incredible flight I've ever taken. We witnessed both the worst and best of humanity, racism, and immediate justice. We saw a CEO take personal responsibility and fire a racist employee on the spot. As Marcus gathered his coffee-stained belongings, Dr. Rodriguez approached with an even broader proposal. Marcus, I want to expand this beyond Skybridge. The systematic discrimination I've documented exists across multiple airlines. Would you be interested in leading industry-wide reform? Let's fix Skybridge first, then use our success as a model for broader change. Agreed. But what happened tonight could be the beginning of transformation across the entire aviation industry. Walking toward the aircraft exit, Marcus was met by Skybridge security personnel, Victoria Hayes, and a crowd of reporters who had learned about the viral incident during the flight. The confrontation had already changed everything. The real work of rebuilding an airline's culture would be challenging, but Marcus had never felt more certain that Skybridge was finally moving in the right direction. His father would have been proud. LAX gate area erupted into barely controlled chaos as Marcus stepped off Flight 3847. Victoria Hayes waited with Skybridge security and legal counsel while reporters pressed against hastily erected barriers. Tommy Chen's live stream had peaked at 247,000 viewers, and hashtag Skybridge Racism was trending globally across every social media platform. Marcus, we need to get you away from cameras immediately, Victoria urged, gesturing toward a service corridor. Hell no. Marcus's voice carried absolute authority. We're addressing this head-on right here, right now, in front of everyone. He turned to face the gathered media, his coffee-stained shirt serving as visible evidence of the racist discrimination he'd experienced live on social media. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I'm Marcus Thompson, CEO of Skybridge Airlines. 1 hour ago, I experienced systematic racial discrimination on my own airline, culminating in flight attendant Christina Vale deliberately pouring coffee on me while making explicit racist comments about people like me not belonging in first class. Reporters erupted with overlapping questions, but Marcus raised his hand for silence. I was flying undercover to understand passenger experiences. What I discovered was systematic discriminatory treatment throughout our service culture. Tonight's racist incident was extreme, but it represents broader cultural problems we're addressing immediately and comprehensively. Christina Vale was being escorted past the media by security personnel, her termination effective immediately. She avoided cameras, but her tears were visible to dozens of passengers who had witnessed her racist behavior and explosive firing. Mr. Thompson called a CNN reporter. How do you respond to critics who say this incident represents fundamental failures in Skybridge leadership? They're absolutely right, Marcus replied without hesitation. This discrimination didn't happen in a vacuum. It developed because my leadership failed to maintain standards of dignity and respect that should be non-negotiable in customer service. Victoria shifted uncomfortably. This level of corporate accountability was unprecedented in airline crisis management, which typically focused on legal liability limitation rather than moral responsibility. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward with prosecutorial confidence. I'm Dr. Elena Rodriguez, civil rights attorney, and tonight's passenger. I've been documenting discriminatory patterns on Skybridge flights for 18 months. Mr. Thompson's experience represents systematic problems affecting thousands of passengers, particularly people of color. She held up legal documents thick with evidence. 8 passengers provided testimony about Christina Vale's racist behavior, including her deliberate assault on Mr. Thompson and explicit racist comments. We have video evidence from multiple sources, including high-definition cabin security cameras. Tommy Chen approached with his phone still streaming to 280,000-plus viewers worldwide. Mr. Thompson, my audience wants specific changes. not just corporate promises they've heard before. Marcus looked directly into Tommy's camera, addressing the massive global audience watching the confrontation. Effective immediately, every Skybridge employee undergoes mandatory bias training every 6 months. We're establishing a passenger dignity board with real authority to investigate discrimination and implement systemic changes. Dr. Rodriguez will head this board with complete independence to publish progress reports and hold us accountable. He paused for emphasis as comments flooded Tommy's stream. Finally, some real action. This is how you handle racism. Never flying any other airline. We're implementing comprehensive monitoring systems to track service patterns and identify discriminatory behavior before it escalates to incidents like tonight. Any employee engaging in racial discrimination will be terminated immediately, regardless of seniority or past performance. A Los Angeles Times reporter raised her hand. What about passengers who've experienced similar discrimination, but were ignored when filing complaints? They're right, and we failed them completely. Marcus replied with brutal honesty. Our complaint system was designed to minimize legal liability rather than address legitimate discrimination concerns. We're completely redesigning that system to ensure every complaint receives thorough investigation and appropriate response. Maya Johnson approached the impromptu press conference with obvious emotion. Mr. Thompson, I want to thank you publicly for how you handled this situation. I've experienced similar racist treatment on multiple airlines, but this is the first time I've seen a CEO take personal responsibility and commit to concrete changes that matter. Maya, will you join our passenger advisory committee to help design solutions? Absolutely. But I want to see real follow-through, not just good intentions that disappear when the cameras leave. Richard Blackstone emerged from the crowd of deplaning passengers, his expression showing someone forced to confront his own moral failures. Marcus, I need to say something publicly. He faced the cameras with obvious discomfort. I've flown Skybridge regularly for 4 years, and I knew Christina Vale treated some passengers better than others based on their race. I benefited from preferential treatment and never spoke up when others were treated poorly. His voice carried genuine shame. Tonight forced me to confront my role in enabling discrimination through silence. Passengers who receive fair treatment have a responsibility to speak up when others are being discriminated against. Dr. Rodriguez nodded approvingly. That's exactly the bystander accountability we need. Discrimination thrives in silence and dies when people refuse to tolerate it. Sandra Mills approached with her husband, both visibly shaken. Mr. Thompson, we want to participate in whatever focus groups you establish. What we witnessed tonight was shameful, but your immediate response gives us hope that meaningful change is possible. As more Flight 3847 passengers joined the conversation, sharing observations and offering to help with reform efforts, Marcus realized the racist incident had created unprecedented opportunity for systematic transformation across the airline industry. Tommy Chen's stream had reached 340,000 viewers, with news outlets around the world requesting rebroadcast permissions. Social media responses were overwhelmingly supportive of Marcus's accountability and immediate consequences. Finally, a CEO with backbone. This is leadership. Every airline should handle racism like this. Never flying any other carrier again. Mr. Thompson called an ABC News reporter. What's your message to other airline executives who may be watching this coverage? Marcus looked directly into news cameras, knowing his words would be broadcast globally. Discrimination isn't an individual problem. It's cultural failure, requiring leadership accountability. Airlines ignoring systematic bias aren't just violating federal civil rights laws. They're destroying their businesses by alienating customers who have alternatives. He gestured toward the crowd of passengers still discussing their experiences. These are paying customers who deserve dignity regardless of race, age, or appearance. Airlines that can't provide equitable service will lose customers to competitors who can. Victoria finally spoke, her voice carrying financial concerns. Marcus, the stock market opens in 5 hours. This level of public accountability about systematic racism could have significant financial implications. Victoria, our stock price is less important than our integrity, Marcus replied firmly. If investors don't support companies that treat customers with dignity, they're invested in the wrong companies. Dr. Rodriguez smiled at his response. That's exactly the leadership accountability that makes meaningful change possible. When executives prioritize reputation management over systematic reform, discrimination problems only get worse. As the impromptu press conference concluded, Marcus realized the coffee incident and Christina's racist comments had accomplished what years of customer surveys and diversity programs never could: public accountability for systematic discrimination and momentum for industry-wide transformation. The immediate aftermath would be challenging media scrutiny, legal complexities, operational disruptions, and resistance from employees comfortable with the discriminatory status quo. But the foundation for meaningful change had been established through transparency, accountability, and concrete commitments backed by real authority. Walking toward the airport exit with Dr. Rodriguez and his growing team of reform advocates, Marcus reflected on how completely his undercover journey had exceeded its objectives. He'd discovered systematic racial discrimination that threatened both Skybridge's reputation and legal standing. More importantly, he'd found committed partners like Dr. Rodriguez, allies like Maya Johnson and Tommy Chen, and awakened bystanders like Richard Blackstone, who would hold the airline accountable for its promises of change. The real work was just beginning, but Marcus felt more optimistic about Skybridge's future than he had in years. Sometimes, it took a crisis to create conditions necessary for transformation, and tonight's racist incident had provided exactly the catalyst needed to rebuild the airline his father had envisioned. By 2 a.m. Pacific Time, the Skybridge racist incident dominated every major social media platform and news outlet worldwide. Marcus sat in his Los Angeles hotel room laptop, displaying dozens of browser tabs, showing viral videos, news coverage, and real-time market responses. Tommy Chen's original live stream had been viewed over 12 million times across platforms. #Skybridge. Racism was trending globally, but so was #Skybridge accountability, with users praising Marcus's immediate response to workplace racism. Skybridge CEO experiences racism on own airline fires. Employee immediately led every major news cycle. Victoria appeared via video conference from Atlanta headquarters, visible strain after managing crisis communications that defied every conventional corporate playbook. Marcus, we've received over 15,000 media requests in 8 hours, she reported. Every major outlet worldwide wants interviews. Social media engagement is beyond anything we've ever measured in airline industry history. What's the tone globally? Overwhelmingly positive, actually. International coverage focuses on your immediate accountability and specific reform commitments, rather than just the racist incident. The London Financial Times called it unprecedented corporate transparency in addressing institutional racism. Marcus checked pre-market stock indicators. Financial implications. Mixed early reaction. Some analysts worry about legal liability exposure and operational reform costs, but others note that systematic bias elimination could dramatically improve long-term customer retention and brand value globally. James Mitchell joined from London, his risk management instincts still conflicting with the radical transparency approach Marcus had chosen. Marcus will understand the moral imperative completely, but publicly acknowledging systematic racism could expose us to massive legal liability. Every passenger who's felt discriminated against could claim grounds for federal lawsuits. James, we already had that legal exposure, Marcus replied. Dr. Rodriguez has been building class action discrimination cases for 18 months with extensive documentation. The difference now is we're addressing problems proactively rather than waiting for federal lawsuits to force expensive changes. Dr. Rodriguez, joining from her hotel room, nodded with legal authority. Marcus is absolutely correct. Legal liability existed whether publicly acknowledged or not. Companies demonstrating good faith efforts to eliminate systematic discrimination often receive much more favorable treatment from federal courts than those denying problems and resisting reform. She held up thick documentation folders. I've been contacted by 97 additional passengers since tonight's incident became viral worldwide. They're sharing discrimination experiences and expressing support for comprehensive reform rather than individual lawsuit interests. That's encouraging for business continuity, Victoria said. But we need preparation for dramatically increased complaint volumes and intense media scrutiny of every customer interaction going forward. That's exactly what we want and need, Marcus replied. Transparency creates accountability. If employees know their service patterns are monitored and potentially publicized worldwide, they'll provide better treatment to all passengers. Tommy Chen had requested to join the conference, his unique witness documenter perspective, providing valuable insights into global public reaction. Mr. Thompson, response from my audience and international viewers has been incredible. People are sharing their own airline discrimination experiences worldwide, but expressing hope that Skybridge's approach could force reform throughout the global aviation industry. He displayed social media analytics from multiple platforms. The video has been shared over 8 million times with 98% positive sentiment about your immediate response. People worldwide are saying they want to fly Skybridge specifically because of how you handled workplace racism. That's the global business case for eliminating discrimination, Marcus observed. Customers choose airlines treating them with dignity over those that don't, regardless of nationality or background. James remained concerned about precedent. But what about passengers who might object to extensive monitoring and bias training requirements? Some traditional customers prefer established service approaches. Dr. Rodriguez addressed his concern with legal precision. James, passengers preferring traditional approaches that involve racial discrimination aren't customers Skybridge should retain under federal civil rights laws. The legal framework is crystal clear on this issue. The conference continued past 3 a.m., covering legal frameworks, operational logistics, financial implications, and global communication strategies. By conclusion, Marcus had authorized over $125 million for comprehensive discrimination elimination in year one, reflecting serious commitment to meaningful transformation that would be watched worldwide. As calls ended, and Marcus prepared for morning interviews with international media, he reflected on how completely the coffee incident and Christina's racist comments had transformed his perspective on corporate leadership accountability. 18 hours earlier, he'd been a CEO concerned about declining satisfaction metrics. Now, he was leading global aviation industry reform of discriminatory practices that had been normalized throughout commercial aviation worldwide. The transformation would be challenging, expensive, and intensely scrutinized by media globally. But for the first time in years, Marcus felt Skybridge was moving toward principles that would have made his father proud while setting new standards for the entire industry. William Thompson had built an airline on treating every passenger like family. 57 years later, his son was rebuilding that vision on transparency, accountability, and human dignity that systematic racism couldn't survive. The commitment to change was now public, specific, irreversible, and watched by millions worldwide. The Skybridge training facility in Atlanta buzzed with revolutionary energy as Marcus walked through corridors, observing the comprehensive transformation that had unfolded since Tommy Chen live-streamed Christina Vale's racist coffee assault to hundreds of thousands of viewers. What began as viral crisis management had evolved into the most systematic airline service reform in global aviation history. In conference room B25, flight attendants participated in mandatory bias elimination training that all Skybridge employees now completed biannually. The program, developed with Dr. Elena Rodriguez's Passenger Dignity Board, addressed specific discriminatory behaviors identified through systematic analysis of service interactions captured on video and documented by passengers. Marcus paused outside to observe through glass walls. Lisa Torres, the young flight attendant who had helped clean up Christina's racist coffee assault, now facilitated sessions with remarkable confidence and moral authority. Remember, Lisa told the group with conviction, human dignity isn't negotiable based on ticket class, appearance, race, or passenger familiarity. Every interaction must reflect identical professionalism and respect, period. A veteran attendant raised her hand. This differs significantly from training 20 years ago. We were taught to identify premium passengers for enhanced attention based on appearance and behavior. That's exactly the discriminatory mindset we're eliminating, Lisa replied firmly. Premium service should reflect ticket class only, never personal characteristics like race or perceived social status. A first-class passenger is a first-class passenger, regardless of skin color. Marcus smiled, watching Lisa's transformation from nervous junior crew to program coordinator. Her authentic perspective, as someone who'd witnessed both systematic racism and its consequences, gave her credibility with veteran employees resistant to change. Continuing to the Passenger Dignity Board offices, Marcus found Dr. Rodriguez analyzing service interaction data from across Skybridge's network. Sophisticated monitoring systems tracked passenger complaints, crew performance patterns, and service consistency across demographic groups, creating unprecedented transparency in airline service delivery. Perfect timing. Dr. Rodriguez greeted him, gesturing toward wall displays showing real-time metrics. I wanted to show you quarterly results that are frankly revolutionary. The data was transformative. Discrimination complaints had decreased 82% since implementing new training and monitoring systems. Overall, customer satisfaction had increased 43% across all categories, with dramatic improvements among passengers of color and elderly travelers who previously reported systematic poor treatment. More importantly, Dr. Rodriguez's continued complaints about racial discrimination have virtually disappeared. The monitoring and training eliminated the service disparities that were driving federal discrimination complaints. Maya Johnson, now Director of Customer Advocacy on the Passenger Dignity Board, approached with additional reports showing business transformation. What are you seeing from passenger feedback? Marcus asked. It's revolutionary, Marcus. Passengers notice the changes and respond with incredible loyalty. We receive thank you messages from families saying flight attendants are now genuinely helpful, rather than dismissive based on race. Business travelers comment on consistent service regardless of crew demographics. She displayed social media analytics. The hashtag Skybridge Transformation hashtag has been used over 600,000 times with 99% positive sentiment. Passengers actively recommend Skybridge because of our elimination of discriminatory service patterns. Financial impact data from Victoria showed dramatic business improvements despite significant reform investments. Customer retention reached historic highs, premium bookings increased 38%, and Skybridge's Net Promoter Score rose from negative to industry-leading positive across all demographic groups. The business case for eliminating racism has been proven conclusively. Victoria had noted in recent board presentations, discrimination wasn't just morally wrong, it was financially destructive to long-term profitability. Marcus encountered Tommy Chen, now Director of Transparency and Public Accountability, a position focused on documenting and communicating reform progress to the global audience that had watched his viral live stream. How's the documentary series performing internationally? Incredible global response. The 10-part transformation series has reached 150 million views across platforms worldwide. More importantly, it's inspired anti-discrimination reform programs at 12 other major airlines globally. Tommy showed clips featuring employee interviews, passenger testimonials, and industry expert analysis of systematic bias elimination impacts. The most powerful feedback comes from employees worldwide who say training helped them recognize unconscious racial biases they didn't know they had. Christina Vale's racist behavior was extreme, but many crew members admit providing inconsistent service without realizing the discriminatory patterns. Marcus paused at Christina's mention. The former flight attendant had become aviation racism's most visible symbol, but her story had taken unexpected turns toward redemption. Remind me about Christina's current situation. She completed court-mandated bias counseling and now works with civil rights organizations, helping people understand how workplace racism develops and escalates. She's requested meetings to discuss participating in training programs, not as an employee, but helping others recognize how discrimination becomes normalized in corporate cultures. The request no longer surprised Marcus. Christina had become a cautionary example, but her willingness to acknowledge racist behavior and contribute to solutions suggested genuine change that could benefit broader reform efforts. Set up the meeting. If she's serious about making amends for her racist actions, her perspective could benefit training programs globally. In the main conference room, Marcus found the weekly leadership meeting in progress. The group included Victoria, Dr. Rodriguez, Maya Johnson, Lisa Torres, Tommy Chen, and executives who had fully embraced transformation. We were reviewing global industry impact, Victoria reported. 7 major international airlines have adopted similar passenger dignity initiatives, and the EU is considering legislation requiring bias training across all European carriers. James Mitchell, connected from London, his perspective completely evolved as Skybridge's financial performance improved dramatically alongside elimination of discriminatory service patterns. Marcus I owe you a profound apology. I was completely wrong prioritizing legal risk over systematic racism elimination. Financial results speak clearly. Treating customers with dignity, regardless of race, isn't just ethically imperative. It's the most profitable airline operations approach possible. He presented data showing Skybridge's stock price had increased 89% since implementing discrimination elimination programs, dramatically outperforming industry averages and earning recognition as the global model for values-driven corporate leadership. Dr. Rodriguez shared legal implications updates. Systematic discrimination elimination has actually reduced legal liability significantly. Passengers experiencing problems now have effective internal remedies, making external legal action much less likely. Transparency and accountability demonstrate good faith efforts that federal courts recognize very favorably. As the meeting concluded, Marcus reflected on how completely the coffee incident and Christina's racist comments had transformed not just Skybridge's operations, but his understanding of effective moral leadership. Willingness to acknowledge systematic racism publicly and commit to measurable solutions had created customer trust and employee loyalty that defensive damage control never could have achieved. Walking through the training facility toward his office, Marcus stopped at one final session, advanced training for supervisors, focusing on maintaining anti-discrimination standards and addressing bias when it occurred. The instructor posed a scenario. You observe a crew member providing noticeably better service to white passengers than black passengers based purely on racial appearance. The discriminated passengers haven't complained, but differential treatment is obvious. What do you do? Responses showed how thoroughly Skybridge's culture had changed. Every participant identified immediate intervention as their moral and professional responsibility with specific steps for addressing discriminatory behavior immediately and preventing recurrence. 6 months earlier, that racist behavior would have been ignored or rationalized as normal service variations. Now it was recognized as unacceptable discrimination, requiring immediate correction. In his office, Marcus found a handwritten letter delivered that morning from Carlos and Maria Torres. Dear Mr. Thompson, we wanted to thank you for the incredible experience on our recent Skybridge flight visiting Elena's grandparents. The crew was wonderful with our children, treating us with genuine respect and warmth, regardless of our Latino appearance. Elena especially wanted us to tell you the flight attendant remembered her name and asked how she was feeling. Skybridge really has become the family airline we hoped it would be. The letter detailed thoughtful service and authentic care, exactly what William Thompson had envisioned founding the airline in 1967. As evening approached, Marcus prepared to board Skybridge Flight 1205 to New York for an international conference about corporate accountability and racism elimination. He would fly coach, as had become standard practice, experiencing the airline as regular passengers did. At the gate, a young black woman approached, introducing herself as Jennifer Williams, a recent graduate starting her first New York job. Mr. Thompson, I wanted to thank you for what you've done with Skybridge. My family switched to your airline after seeing how you handled that racist flight attendant incident, and every flight has been wonderful. It's the first airline where I've felt truly welcome, regardless of my appearance. As boarding began, Marcus reflected on the journey from systematic racism to industry-leading service standards. The transformation hadn't been easy or inexpensive, but it proved treating people with dignity, regardless of race, wasn't just morally necessary, it was sustainable business success foundation. Taking seat 23C. Marcus opened his laptop to review the speech he would deliver about eliminating racism in corporate operations. The coffee stains had long been cleaned, but lessons from Christina Vale's racist assault continued guiding every decision about Skybridge's future. As the plane taxied toward takeoff, flight attendant Jennifer Walsh approached with genuine warmth. Good evening, Mr. Thompson. Thank you for flying with us tonight. Is there anything I can do to make your flight more comfortable? Her authentic friendliness was identical to service she provided every passenger regardless of race identity or status. This was the Skybridge William Thompson had envisioned rebuilt through transparency, accountability, and unwavering commitment to human dignity. The transformation was complete, but continuous anti-racism commitment would never end. Every flight, every passenger interaction, every employee decision was an opportunity to demonstrate that racial discrimination had no place in air travel. As Flight 1205 lifted into the Atlanta night sky, Marcus felt accomplishment beyond business metrics or financial performance. Skybridge had become living proof that companies could eliminate systematic racism, that leadership accountability could drive comprehensive reform, and that treating people with dignity regardless of race wasn't just right, it was the only sustainable path to lasting success. Christina Vale's racist coffee assault had ended her career, but begun transformation benefiting millions of passengers globally. Sometimes crisis created conditions necessary for meaningful change, and Marcus was grateful Skybridge's racist incident had catalyzed industry-wide reform. The journey toward true racial equality in aviation continued, but thanks to one deliberately spilled cup of coffee, racist comments captured on live stream, and a CEO willing to acknowledge systematic discrimination, the destination was finally within reach. The coffee had burned, but it had also ignited change that would outlast any temporary pain. The most important conversations about racism often begin with the most difficult moments, and Marcus Thompson would never again underestimate the power of accountability to transform not just companies, but entire industries worldwide. As Atlanta's lights faded below Skybridge, Flight 1205 carried passengers toward destinations both literal and metaphorical. A future where dignity traveled with every ticket, regardless of race. Respect came standard with every seat. And coming home to family was more than marketing copy. It was a promise kept, and racism finally defeated. If this story opened your eyes to the reality of discrimination that still exists today, please hit that like button and share this video with everyone you know. Subscribe to our channel for more stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things when they refuse to accept injustice. Comment below and tell us where you're watching from, and share your own experiences. Have you ever witnessed discrimination like this? What would you have done in Marcus's situation? Your voice matters, and together we can continue pushing for change in every industry, every company, every interaction. Because sometimes it takes one person willing to stand up and say, enough is enough, to change everything. Thank you for watching. And remember, when you see injustice, don't just record it. Don't just share it. Act on it. The power to create change is in your hands.